Hello, today we're going to be talking about the new weapons in Killing Floor 2. The new beta just came out a few days ago, and I've had the pleasure to try out all the new weapons, as well as the new map. So we're going to be talking about that. I have yet to try the weekly out yet. I will be going over that, but just think of this as first impressions of the weapons. First up, let's talk about the DLC weapons that are being added in this patch. So we are getting the Blood Sickle. This is a giant scythe that Berserker gets, and this one was the one I was looking forward to the most. Obviously, this one is an interesting weapon. This one's a tier 4 weapon for Berserker. It weighs 7, and you can upgrade it once, so you can go up to a tier 5 that weighs 8. Its upgrade gives it 15% more damage, which is pretty respectable. That's about on par, or a little bit above what we usually get on a tier 4 weapon. It does have a unique mechanic, and it felt a bit strange for me to be using this. It's got its standard light attacks, heavy attacks, and it's got a stab, similar to something like the Katana or the Zweihander, which is kind of nice. Light attacks feel pretty quick. They actually feel surprisingly fast. Heavy attacks also in the first mode are not so bad. They're fairly quick as well. I didn't really see myself using that much when I had it in the shorter mode. I just swung it around normally. However, if you hit your reload button, then it switches modes. So then it becomes, the blade swivels out to where you have the long reach of a full scythe. However, it slows down when you do this. You get more damage when you're in this mode and you have longer reach. The scythe actually has the longest reach out of any of the weapons in the game currently. The only exception to that is the special attack from the Ion Thruster, which is further. I think the Ion Thruster is 4.8 meters, and the scythe, when it's completely unfolded, is 2.9 meters. So that's pretty good. The Ion Thruster, I believe, has 2.4 base, and even the Mosin doesn't have quite that high. I think the Mosin's like 2.5, 2.6, something like that. So now the scythe is the longest reaching weapon, at least once you have it fully extended. When you don't have it extended, it's still 1.9 meters, so it's longer than other weapons reach. I think that's longer than weapons like the Katana. Not as long as like the Ion Thruster though. And the hitbox on this one feels a little bit strange, at least it did to me. It feels a bit longer than what the animations look like and what the actual model of the weapon hitting the model of the Zeds looks like, especially once you have the full reach mode. I think it's just because it's like the very tip of the blade can actually hit stuff, and you can't really see that from a first-person angle. It felt pretty good, though. It attacked quickly. One problem that was brought up is that it doesn't attack in a normal, like, vertical or horizontal pattern, at least not with every swing. It kind of attacks in a diagonal swing, which kind of makes sense for a scythe, but it does make it a little bit awkward for fighting certain enemies because you want to swing, like, you want to be off to the right-hand side to hit something in the head and then move to the left-hand side to potentially hit it in the head with the second heavy swing. At least that's how I found it was pretty useful. The other thing that felt a little bit strange about this weapon was the amount of time it takes to actually put it away. So that's a little bit annoying, but for the weight and for the damage that it has, I think it's actually a pretty decent weapon. I didn't really have much problems with it, and it did take care of like quarter pounds of flesh pounds really quick. All attack damage types count as stabbing or slashing with this. Slashing with any normal attack, but stabbing with the push attack, like how the Zweihander and the Katana count. And then it has like the standard parry reduction, so 60% damage reduction when you effectively parry something, 50% when you effectively block from something. About normal for a weapon like this. Damage stats for when it's folded up, so it's at the smallest. Light attacks, 60 damage a hit. Heavy attacks, 87 damage a hit. When it's unfolded and it's the big scythe, 90 damage for light attacks, 150 damage for heavy attacks, and then 50 damage for stabs all the way around. Not really much to complain about with the Blood Sickle. I think it's actually pretty good. It's a little bit wonky, a little bit weird the way your person holds it. But other than that, it's pretty cool. I like it. And then we moved on to SWAT's new weapon, which is the G36C assault rifle. It's kind of weird that they gave SWAT an assault rifle, but why not? They've already given them another assault rifle with the Bastion, even though that's kind of more of a light machine gun. They've got a nail gun. They've got a shotgun. So why not just give them an assault rifle, I guess? It's kind of weird that this one's not crossbow with Commando. I think it would actually be pretty decent on Commando. This one does 45 damage a shot, which is pretty good. This one also has max piercing on it, because every round is supposed to be armor piercing. Works really good against any of the bosses that are armored, so like Abomination, or I guess the other Zeds that are armored too, like Rioters. Seems to work pretty good against robots too, punches right through them. This one is another tier 4 weapon. This one is kind of a weird cost because it's $1,600, so that's not really the normal tier 4 cost. Usually it's $1,500, but that's okay. Weighs 7, which isn't a big deal because even if you have 7 weights, you can take any other SWAT weapon, even if you want to take the Glock 18 and the shield. That would mean that you couldn't upgrade either weapon, but you could take that. You could also take it with the Bastion and upgrade this one, and then you'd have an 8 weight and a 7 weight. They both be tier 5s. You could take it with a nail gun. You can take it with anything, which is pretty awesome. It's actually got the best sight on it out of any of the assault rifles, I would say. It's got a red dot that just pops right out and you can use it no problem. Sound effects are a little bit iffy to me on this one. It sounds okay. Most people brought up its kind of scuffed animations for reloading and stuff. And yeah, it doesn't have the smoothest. It feels like it's a little bit rushed. It feels very similar to the FAMAS for Commando. Feels way better to actually use than the FAMAS, though. The FAMAS has always been kind of a wonky one for me. This one feels fantastic. 750 rounds rate of fire, which is pretty good. It's by no means like the highest for SWAT, especially because you have things like the Chris, which get up to 1200. But it's not slow. It barely has any recoil, too, when I was shooting it. So it feels really good. One upgrade gets a 15% more damage, so it goes up to 51 damage a shot. Goes up to a total weight of 8. That's pretty good. This one just feels good all the way around. I think it's pretty comparable to something like the Chris. If you want something that's a little bit slower, but has its armor breaking capability and does more damage per shot, I think this is a pretty good option. Of course, there's nothing stopping you from taking both of them and then just wreaking havoc with it. So nothing but praise for the G36 right now. I think it's really good. Then we move on to everybody's favorite type of weapons, the HRG weapons. And this time we actually got really good HRG weapons. First up, we're going to talk about the Dragon's Blaze for Firebug. This is the Doomstick that's been reskinned for Firebug, which is pretty awesome. The Doomstick is definitely a fan favorite weapon and one of my favorite weapons. This is another tier 4 weapon. I think we got 3 tier 4s and a tier 3 weapon. That's what we got. This one is our 3rd tier 4 weapon. This one weighs 7 currently, which also means you can take any Firebug weapon with it besides, I think, the microwave gun. I think the microwave gun's 9 base. So you can't take that, but that's okay. It also does really high damage. This actually does 28 damage per pellet, and it fires out 8 pellets. So 2 more pellets than the standard Doomstick. Usually you fire 6, and that does do more damage. The Doomstick itself will do more damage than the Dragon's Blaze. However, the Dragon's Blaze is not lacking a whole lot. It still does pretty good damage. It is a shotgun, which definitely benefits. It's got 4 shots, although you can't fire out all 4 shots like you can with the Doomstick. Its secondary fire fires out in a horizontal line. I didn't really notice much difference between firing the horizontal line and the standard shot. Usually I just stuck with the standard shot because I was more used to shooting the shotguns like that, but the other one seems fine, especially if you're trying to hit crawlers or trying to hit stalkers or something. I don't see there being too much of a difference there. And this one can start ground fires, which is really useful. Ground fires are always a good thing for Firebug, which means it's obviously not going to be as great of a weapon for other classes. The only other one I could see taking this would be like Survivalist, and I think it would be okay there. But for that, you could just go with a regular shotgun and probably have a better time, or go with something like the Kaboom Stick, which is just ridiculous and gives you area damage and even more damage. This one is also really insane in Z time if you have Pyromaniac, because the Doomstick does not need to wait for like a reload or anything, or any sort of other animation similar to the Dragon's Breath where you actually have to do the pumping animation between shots. This one you don't, you can just keep firing. So even if you run out of bullets, it doesn't matter, you just spam this down a hallway and just murder everything. It feels really good to do that with. It's also really good for taking out big guys, even like Skrakes and Fleshbounds, which sometimes Firebug doesn't have the easiest time killing. They don't have the hardest time or anything, but not always the easiest. This one's really good against both of them. And again, with 7 weight, you can take it with other weapons like the Thermite Bore if you want to just have an insanely strong build. Or you could take it with the Helios Rifle. You could take it with the other shotgun, the Dragon's Breath. There's a lot of options there for Firebug, and it's really cool that we're getting another really strong weapon for Firebug. And then the last weapon that we got was a Survivalist weapon, which whenever we get a Survivalist weapon, it's usually not that great, or it's very gimmicky and kind of weird. There's only been a couple exceptions. You know, the Freeze Thrower, kind of gimmicky and weird, but actually decent as a support weapon. Killer Watt, kind of gimmicky and weird. Arc Gen, really, really strong, but also a little bit strange. This one is kind of strange too, but actually really strong, at least as of right now. So this is a tier 3 weapon. It only costs 900, so it's the same cost as the MAC-10, and it is really awesome. This one lets you fire out shots like the Seeker 6. You can switch modes the same way you can with the Seeker 6. It's either lock-on mode or regular shot mode. Lock-on mode actually seems to lock on really fast with this weapon, though. So that's pretty nice, and the lock-on mode has a slightly higher rate of fire than the regular mode. Damage on this thing is 1, at least if you direct hit somebody with a missile, so you're not missing out on damage if you don't direct hit. This is an area weapon, and it sends out a swarm that starts attacking enemies. This applies poison, and it applies bleeding onto enemies, too. It doesn't really show the icons of this happening, though, So it's kind of confusing as to when this happens, and I think it's only during the duration of this hitting. So it's not like the Hemogoblin where it has a damage over time effect and the bleed you can clearly see working on the enemy. This weighs 6. You can upgrade it twice because it is a tier 3, but at 6 weight, that's really good. You can pair it with tons of other weapons. You could pair it with something like the RPG if you wanted. I paired it with the Kaboom Stick because it seemed like it would be a good combo. Range is pretty nice on this. It doesn't have an arming distance like the Seeker 6 does either, or any of the explosive weapons. It will explode at any range, which is really nice. The explosion itself does 80 damage, and then the swarm comes out and actually starts hitting the enemies. This deals, I believe, 40 direct damage right away, and then it deals damage over time from the poison from the bleed. I also don't know if that's from the nano machines, swarm, locust, whatever the heck they are, just eating away at stuff, if it just keeps applying that, because it seemed to be killing things really fast when I was using it. It was great for crowd control, and it was even good against big enemies, just for, like, annoying them, more or less. It was kind of like putting the fire on them. So it seems like Survivalist also got a really good weapon this time. We didn't get kind of a weird gimmicky weapon like last time with the Reducto Ray, although the Reducto Ray is also kind of good. It's just a really weird weapon. And then the new map we got is called Barnwich. I think it's pretty cool. I actually really like the design of it. I didn't find too many issues with it just by running around it. First, I didn't think the map was as big as it is. It's actually a really big map. It's really sprawling, and it's really easy to get confused there. It's not always the easiest to fight in because there are certain areas that are really closed off. But if you find a couple areas that are pretty good, specifically that weapon cache room, if you find all the medallions for that, it's really strong for just a choke point because everything has to funnel in, and you can potentially get infinite armor there. Don't know if they'll keep that. That seems a bit too strong for that map, but who knows? Maybe not. It's kind of open, but there's plenty of small spaces to go through, plenty of small tunnels. There's like the underground area. Some of it's a little bit confusing, but I really like the aesthetic of it. Aesthetically, I think it might be actually one of my favorite maps in Killing Floor 2 to play on. It's a pretty solid map. I wouldn't say it's one of the best, but I wouldn't say it's one of the worst. So we've got another good map on Killing Floor 2, which is a bit weird. So I'm actually pretty happy with this beta so far. Of course, I still have to try the new weekly mode, see how the VIP works. Don't know, I doubt it's going to be as fun as like Gun Game that we got in the last update, because Gun Game was pretty awesome. But hey, it could be cool, and I'll be doing like another overview of this once I actually have gotten to test out everything, and probably once we have at least beta 2 and I've gotten to try out everything that's changed there. Thanks everybody for watching this though, and special thanks to the supporters over here. I really do appreciate the support. And if you guys would like to see more of my Killing Floor 2 content, be sure to click over here on this playlist right now. That'll take you to a full list of them. Thanks, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye bye!